I've only been in the crypto space for about a month now, but I think it's pretty safe at this point to say that I really fell in love with it. I mean, I'm spending day, nights, and weekends just researching everything that I can about those, finding out about new projects, and bringing those to you. Not just the big ones, not just the ones that everyone's talking about, but also the smaller ones, the ones that could blow up with time, or really the projects that are trying to make things different. But all along, I do have one big problem with the ethics of it, and that's because of the environment. The amount of computing power that we are using to just sustain this ecosystem is so crazy. I mean, the figures are so big that it's hard to even comprehend those. As of today, about 0.5% of the power produced in the entire world is used just to sustain the Bitcoin ecosystem. And that is just for the Bitcoin, which is one of the tokens on one of the chains. But when you add it all up across all the different chains for all the different tokens, I mean, it gets crazy. So according to Statista, roughly 36% of the power produced all throughout the world is still coming from fossil fuel like oil and coal. On the other hand, renewable sources only account for about 25% of that total. This means that the amount of CO2 that we are releasing from producing this power and the speed at which we are depleting the natural resources is just impossible to visualize. And just as a disclaimer, I live in Canada, so my power consumption is not the first thing that comes to mind when I think about being greener. We decided that we would flood thousands of square kilometers of forest to build these huge hydro dams, and now we are relying mostly on those to produce our electricity. So I mean, while the construction of those dams was a literal environmental catastrophe, the day-to-day use is deemed greener in general. Anyway, that was way before my birth, so I get to look down complacently on every other country, I guess. Crypto is increasingly looked at as one of the culprits for the increase in power usage and thus in climate change. And I do take some steps personally to kind of mitigate the impact of my investments on the environment, but I know that not everyone is willing to go out of their way to do this. So, I mean, you just have to wonder, is there an easier way to do this? And that is exactly where Forest Financial comes into play. They are setting up a DeFi as a service project, which strongly resembles the nodes project that we've seen recently, except that instead of buying a node, you're buying a yield tree, and those yield you with forest tokens. So far, the team has put a very strong emphasis on the community. They want the investors to be able to steer the project whichever way they feel is best. This has already been shown through Discord votes, which led to the logo being chosen, which sounds rather unimportant, to also the pre-sale being made for yield trees entirely rather than tokens. So community is part of sustainability, but it also goes beyond that. The project is going to give part of its profits to reforest areas in the world. As we know, trees are one of the best ways to help the environment. They filter the air, they hold the land together, and I mean, they're just awesome all over. I'm probably gonna look like a freak, but I love trees so much it's hard to comprehend, especially if you're not an outdoors enthusiast. I mean, my whole summer is pretty much dedicated to forests and living adventures in the forest. So when you talk about planting new trees, making new forests, undoing some of the damage that we're doing, I mean, I'm sold from the get-go. Now, there is no definitive game plan as to which organizations or how much the project is going to give, but what we know so far is that they're working on a map which will allow investors to choose in which regions the project is going to get involved. I think that's a great concept, and just the fact that we're making room for such important topics at the core of these projects, I think is really thrilling. And I'm not going to try to predict anything because it's been shown that I can't, but we may be seeing a trend with Hive being one of the main project which is being looked at right now and which is driven by some of the most prominent actors in the space. They are going to help bees, and then this project wants to help the forest, and Lava wants to help volcanoes. What? All I'm trying to say is, what if we could use the problem to create the solution? Wouldn't that be amazing? Enough of me getting excited with the environment. This project is still a financial one, and looking at the money is super important because that's what's going to decide if the project makes or breaks. As you can expect, since they're going for a sustainable approach, the APY is not going to be something completely degenerate like we've seen in other projects. And while I usually get very excited about the degenerate APYs, this low return also kind of excites me. And just to clear the air, when I'm talking about lower return, I'm really comparing with the rest of the space, because once again, if you compare this, for example, with the S&P 500, which is the universal benchmark for any investment pretty much, that would yield you 8 to 10% yearly, and it's just in a completely different world. This project is going to pay you 1% daily until you make your initial investment back, and then there is a decay period, which is very clever, and at the end of this, your return will be decreased to 0.6% daily. Then again, if you were to compound this daily, you would get between 8 and 900% per year, which is just, like I said, in a different world. Now, you get to make your own mind about this approach, but I, for one, think that it's totally worth it to have lower rewards if we're going to have them for months and years rather than just a few weeks like some other projects that we're seeing right now. Okay, but what if you think that this is too low for you? Well, I'm glad you asked, because you can buy some NFTs right now, and those are going to give you a really crunchy bonus on your return. There are 3 types of NFTs, which are called seed, sapling, and tree, and they each have a different bonus. So the smallest one, the seed NFT, will give you a 0.01 token increase per day. The sapling will give you a 0.025 increase per day. And finally, the tree will give you 0.06 forest increase per day. So bear in mind, each NFT only attaches to 1 yield tree, so the bonuses don't stack, it's just that number. As of recording this video, all 3 NFTs are gone and people are trying to flip those for outrageous profit. The sapling NFTs ended up selling out this morning after the AMA, which was held this weekend. But you can still grab those on the secondary market, and there are plenty of seed NFTs up for grab. Now, these NFTs also give you something more. So this project does not have a whitelist, which requires you to jump through hoops or post fan art around. Not that I don't like fan art, but I just don't feel like it's the most beneficial thing to the project. Now, once you've purchased your NFT, you will be given the right to purchase a certain number of yield trees during the pre-sale. That number depends on which NFT you bought. If you've got a seed, you will get to buy 1 yield tree during the pre-sale. If you bought a sapling, you get to purchase 2 yield trees. And if you were quick enough to get your hands on one of the 3 NFTs, you get to purchase 5 yield trees during the pre-sale. So what's the point of purchasing yield trees during the pre-sale is you get a nice discount. If you don't have any NFTs, you'll get to purchase up to 10 yield trees for $250 a piece. If you have NFTs, you will get a certain number discounted to $200 a piece. And if you wait until the project goes live, you will have to spend 10 forest tokens to make 1 yield tree, and those tokens will go for $75 a piece, which means that the entry ticket will be $750. So all of this is in the white paper. I really recommend that you go through the whole thing because there's a lot of interesting information in there. Just make sure that you're really focused when you do so, because there's a bunch of obsolete information in there and it gets confusing at times. Now, we know that node projects are mostly Ponzi's and those cannot go on forever, so the team has decided to make community voted investments, and they're also giving more use to the forest tokens, such as improving your forest HQ, which is something that should give you an increased yield, and probably other ways to spend the forest within the ecosystem. Now, the team also talked about bridging the gap between regular investors and the crypto space, but they've been pretty evasive, so I can't really elaborate on that as of yet. Now, if you've been active in the space over the last couple of months, we have seen rugs left and right, and preventing those has been increasingly important. As of today, the team is fully KYC'd, and one of the devs also decided to reveal his identity during the AMA this weekend. The authors insisted that no one will be forced to dox themselves, but if they choose to do it, they will not be held back. The contract will also be audited prior to launch, which is a good thing, and just know that the team is not rushing to get this project out. They are really taking their time to make this right the first time around, and that's something I can totally get behind. All in all, I'm really excited about this project. I've picked up 2 sapling NFTs, and I'll be following this one very closely. So if you've made it this far, please leave a like to the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it very, very much. Also, I got trashed in my last video because I was not using Twitter. It's the thing with the Bluebird where you can post like memes and troll other people. Anyway, I made an account. It's down in the description. And finally, I'll be leaving links to the projects in the description of this video and also to their AMA. So if you're curious, go watch that. As always, this isn't financial advice. This is just my take on this project, which I'm excited to see. So do your own research, make up your own mind. I don't know what's going to happen, so just do your own research. But that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.